On occasion, when presenting the truth that the whole Bible is still true and completely applicable to all believers today, we receive a rather interesting response. Sometimes, when contemplating what it would really mean to believe and practice the whole Bible, an almost immediate response of, "We can't keep the whole law perfectly," is offered as a counterthought. The obvious implication of this statement is that since no one keeps the whole law perfectly, then we're not to keep it at all. Now, this is often said only in terms of God's dietary instructions found in Leviticus 11, or keeping the Sabbath as found in Leviticus 23. Ironically, those are easy commandments to keep, if not the easiest. But then when you ask them if they have ever lied, or murdered, or lusted in their heart, and thus broke those commandments, well, then we have an issue, because if we can't keep those, should we throw our hands up and then say, well, I shouldn't keep those because I just can't? The whole idea stems from the fact that Jesus, his Hebrew name being Yeshua, kept God's law perfectly, which of course afforded us the means to salvation by grace and faith. This is a very true statement. Yeshua did keep the law of God perfectly for us, but for two purposes. One, to afford us salvation, as already mentioned, but two, which some do not consider, is to show us the right way to keep the law of God, to be our light, to be our way to live, to show us the truth, and to be life. Sound familiar? John chapter 14, verse 6. Jesus said to him, "I am the way, and the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me." And John chapter 12, verse 46. "I have come as light into the world, so that everyone who believes in me will not remain in darkness." Those are all terms for the Word of God, which is why Yeshua is called the Word of God. So since we do not have to keep the law of God for salvation, which is good, because we would all fail, but we should still keep it because keeping God's law means not sinning, being a light, walking in the way, practicing His truth, and keeping the way of life. In other words, Yeshua did not come to do the law perfectly, so that we should no longer do the law at all. But He did the law perfectly to be our example on how to keep the law of God, not our excuse not to. You know the verses. Walk like He walked. Follow His example. Pick up our cross and follow Him. We do not need to quote these verses, but we do encourage you to really believe these verses. Yeshua did not say, "You shouldn't follow what I did, or taught, or walk as I walked." Obviously, we are to do those things, not because we can do the law of God better than Yeshua did, and not for our salvation, but because they are perfect instructions and the way to live. They are blessings. They are truth. His whole word is truth. Who wouldn't want to practice truth? Psalm 119, verse 142. "Your righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and your law is truth." Are we then suggesting that just because Yeshua practiced the truth perfectly, that we should just ignore truth and walk contrary to it? Obviously not. So, when we believe and practice the whole Word of God, just like Yeshua, we also become the light of the world, just like Yeshua. Matthew chapter 5, verse 14. "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden." He doesn't say, "Don't be a light because I was the light." That would be just silly. Proverbs chapter 6, verse 23. "For the commandment is a lamp, and the law a light. Reproofs of instruction are the way of life." Isaiah chapter 8, verse 20. "To the law and to the testimony, if they do not speak according to this word, is because there is no light in them." Yes, it is true. On occasion, we will mess up keeping the law of God. Not intentionally, but because our flesh gets the best of us. But are we to dismiss the whole law of God because of that? Or still strive to keep it despite our imperfections in the flesh? So perhaps instead of saying, "Yeshua already did that, so I don't have to," perhaps we should be saying, "Yeshua already did that as an example for me. Now I get to also." Just a thought.